All right, a little late this week, but both the truck and Xfinity previews in this. Now, at least with me doing live shows, I can at least, have two videos out a week, focusing on the videos. So sorry this is coming out a bit late. Had a lot of things going on this week. Let's dig right into the truck series. And first and foremost, now I know this year I've been talking specifically about, hey, I don't want to build for, Wreckfest. I don't want to build necessarily for races to where guys might run into issues or back markers have a better chance of working out. When we look specifically at Texas and in the truck series, you know we have seen a trend over really the last give or take 10 12 races here that we do see more incidents, and certainly ever since the repave. Now we see more incidents here in the truck series than we do normally on average at other tracks. And so real quick, let's take a gander at the what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see the last 7 truck series races right here. So we'll go back, clearly our most recent race, and we're going to see that not all of them are complete wreckfest. And I'm pretty sure the one last year wasn't, and I know one in 2020 wasn't. I think the one last year is when Creed wrecked multiple times trying to just destroy the car. Yeah, because he wrecks twice here. When we look at the amount of cautions that we have, and when we look at the amount of runs, like the longest runs, 24 laps, 31, 22 last year, but and this was a race where it was not a wreck fest, so clearly that strategy did not work last year in the one race that they ran at Texas. When we look back at the COVID years, the 2020, we can kind of start seeing we're seeing more guys run to issues. And when we look at the guys who run to issues, let's do this race as well. These are big names here. Shout out to Drew Dollar. Big names running to issues here. When we look here, it's kind of the same thing once you get past the initial like DNFs of guys just wrecking out early and the back markers not being there. But Infinger, Gillen, Bain, Friesen, Eckes ran into issues here, and we're seeing that people like Jennifer Jo Cobb who start dead last, we're going to go laps down, gain positions. We can look at this race here and quickly see the amount of laps, the longest run being 30 laps, and we look at the yellows, being like, wow, that's a bit of a caution fest. Maybe not necessarily a wreck fest, but when we're looking at a wreck fest, we're looking at the people who are going to be starting in the back this week, who can gain positions. Just a quick rundown of the previous other races. 26 people finish on the race. We have 10 on the lead lap, which is quite incredible here. I'm pretty sure there had to be a yellow at the end of a long run or something. Yeah, that's exactly what happened here. And it trapped people a lap down, and they were able to pit, and it kept people a lap down there. But then once we get back here, now we're back to, Texas with practice, no matter. I do want to say that these races here in 2020 did not have qualifying, because clearly it was a good old COVID hour. And last year's race was it was the metric qualifying. And so, going back to the last race where we've had people with practice in this race, we had 13 cautions for 64 laps. And I don't like just staring at race and reference, but this is a situation where Texas is a place where I don't mind looking at these races here and just looking at the stat sheet of where these guys finished. And when you look at the amount of wrecks that we have, and it's not like complete gigantic overhauls. Now, yes, there is a gigantic wreck on the back straightaway here, but we're seeing one car instance here and there. But what this does is it bunches people up. It gives people issues. So it might just be one person being involved, being the cause of the crash here, but other people getting damaged, other people going through sets of tires, because that's another issue that we just have, is if you spin out and you lose a set of tires, well, look, you're down a set of tires early. When we look at the amount of laps that were ran here, sure, 34 laps is still longest run, but we're seeing short runs. When we start going back and farther back, sure, maybe not a gigantic yellow fest, but look at the amount of people on the lead lap, 15 on the lead lap at the end of this race. We still look at the yellows, not necessarily a gigantic, wreck fest, but we're seeing people, who start in the back, finish up front. And this is where, Jennifer Jo Cobb, Jennifer Jo Cobb, here again, 18th, 17th. When we go even here, during the COVID years, people still being wrecked. Who's finishing up here? Oh, that's right. Angelo Ruck, 23rd. Cody Roball, 21st. Spencer Boyd, 24th. These people are gaining positions. So let's finish going through these last couple races here. Yet again, early wrecks, people being trapped lap down, 11 people on the lead lap at the end of the race. But who are the people taking advantage of these? Mike Harmon, shout out to Big Mike, Reed Sorensen, Fontaine, Nemechek, 18th. I mean, this is a race where we're going to have people this weekend on Friday who start at the back of the field because they're going to qualify poorly, be able, and I think I'm going to at least project them all to pass at least 8 people. So, like, if you're starting 36th, if you're starting 35th, if you're starting 30th, maybe not 30th, if you're starting 32nd, I'll probably project you for around a 22nd place finish. That's what I think I'm going to do this week. And when we look here at, yet again, not huge wrecks, 1 3-car wreck, 1 2-car wreck, but when we look at where these laps are, when we look at the amount of, how long the run is, and we're seeing that it's just going to be a lot of restarts, a lot of wrecks, a lot of people being, put a lap down, 12 people on the lead lap here. And so you run into a situation where Texas is such an interesting character when it comes to trucks and the track. Ever since they reconfigured it, it really is like a mile and a quarter, maybe even less than that, maybe like a mile and a 10th racetrack, because they measure the racetrack at the wall. And we're seeing how wide turns 1 and 2 is. You're right in the bottom. They fucked up when they designed the track of making turn 1 huge and flat, thinking that, it's going to be interesting. So people are going to choose, to work on the car to run well in 1 and 2, and then other people are going to choose to set up the car and run a certain way in 3 and 4. Well, in reality, it's just you set the car up for whatever the fastest corner is. So everybody sets the car up to run through turns 3 and 4 smoothly, so they can basically just stay on the throttle from the exit of 2 to the entry of 1, and then you just take whatever the track gives you in turn 1. That's how they race it now. But going back to the whole distance thing, is sure, it's a mile and a half, but really the race line, since it's right on the bottom and it's a 1-groove racetrack, we're really at like a mile and maybe a 10th, mile and a quarter type of track with how much of the racetrack they're not using in 1 and 2. The fact that this is a 1-groove racetrack, I would fully expect to see, cautions, maybe not gigantic wrecks. That's why the difference between a wreck fest and, just a race that ends up having a lot of restarts is that we're going to have, by default, people who start in the back who are going to make up positions or who are going to outscore people who just aren't able to gain positions. Because once you race through the field in a 1-groove racetrack and you're stuck running about 8th all day, and then you end up being stuck on the outside on a restart, you can't make anything happen. You're not gaining positions once you get to 12th, 8th, 9th, and certainly for the leaders, you're not gaining positions. It's a 1-groove racetrack. You're being determined on the short run speeds. And so, when we look at our salaries this week for the Truck Series, this is a race where I'm very much interested in people like, yet again, hey, shout out to fucking Perkins, week number 3 of doing this, but Perkins, Chris Hacker, Jesse Little, Timmy Hill, 5,400, Spencer Boyd, 4,900, Tyler Hill, 54. These are the guys that I think are going to be qualifying in the back. So the Rayun Brother cars, the Young Motorsports cars, these are cars that I believe are going to be able to have a chance of doing well. When we look back at the people who have done well in Texas, I think this is a place where we do want where we do want to lean on track history, in terms of quote unquote bad drivers in the back. Spencer Boyd has finished in the top 30 every single race. And if you take out last year's spring race in 2021, he's got a top 25 at each race, and basically in the same equipment as he's running here. Jordan Anderson has never finished outside the top 30 here. I hate to say it, but this is a race where I think Anderson can actually score well, because Anderson will probably start in the back of the field and be able to just survive and be there. Garrett Smithley is back in the Young Motorsports car. I believe it's the 02 car. These are guys that I think are going to be able, who I think the 5 and 4K range is going to be very viable this week. And due to that, I think it's very easy to chase Nemechek and Smith for a lap leader. I hate being wrong, and I'm pretty sure I had tunnel vision. I hate it when I just whiff and just blatantly ignore the speed that Zane Smith showed at Kansas last weekend. In his practice, he was significantly faster than Nemechek, and I thought for sure they were trimmed out. I thought something, because and what I should have done is looked at the speed that Zane Smith had in practice. looked at how close he was in that in qualifying, and see that he was close enough to compare that his fall off between his practice time and his qualifying time was not really different. Whereas the jump between the practice time of Nemechek and where he qualified was so huge, I should have realized that, look, that was Nemechek on a one lap, Q run. He was not going to show that up again. He was not going to be able to maintain that speed. And the short run was going to be so important at Kansas. Once you gain, 2, 3, 4 seconds, you're gone. And that's what Zane Smith had. Zane Smith had the short run car, which, and I say short run, but he had the speed. He had the fastest car, 10, 15 laps into a run. And at that point, you've already gained a gigantic amount of time. You're just going to coast to the end of the stage. Whereas, and I'm not saying Nemechek had long run speed over Zane Smith, but you saw that the KBM cars had a better time, they didn't have as drastic as a fall off between the start of the run and the end of the run, but the time that Zane Smith gained from being way faster on the short run didn't, get eroded away by his fall off on the long run. And so, I'm probably gonna do some lines with Nemechek, some lines with Zane Smith. I'm perfectly fine with playing Zane Smith entering this week, yet again, specifically at a one groove racetrack. I thought for sure they'd be able to work better. The KBM trucks would be able to work better at the multi-groove race of Kansas, but that was just not the case. Whereas Texas one groove racetrack, you're not going to be able to do anything else. Look, like, regardless if they put PJ1 up there or not, it's still going to have some residue up there, but it's just not going to be viable, man. Nobody's going to be running up there. It's just going to be filled with debris and dirt, and it's not going to have any real grip, unless people slowly start migrating up, which I just don't see happening, And so going back, I'm very much okay chasing either Nemechek or Zane Smith based off of practice time. I think Chandler Smith has a chance to be way more of a contender than Nemechek. I don't know what it is with Nemechek right now. I'm not saying he doesn't have the best cars, because he's certainly consistent, but his gap between this year and last year of the other KBM cars, it's not as wide. We're seeing we're seeing Chandler Smith really be an identical play to John Hunter Nemechek. We're really seeing the other Kyle Busch car, which is going to be Corey Heim again this week, be very much on par and very close to what Nemechek can do. And so, Nemechek, I saw somebody in Discord saying Nemechek was a trap play last weekend. I don't think it was necessarily a trap play. I think the evidence was there that Zane Smith was a fucking faster car, and I didn't fucking see it, and this is speaking for me. I'm not making excuses for anyone else. I'm trying to be honest with myself and pay attention to what I need to do. I need to take the blinders off and really, pay attention to what these guys are showing in practice. And I can't believe I stared Zane Smith. The data was right there. And it never occurred to me that, hey, I might want the guy who just has a fucking fast car in the short run because he's going to gain a huge time on the guy in second place. And it's going to be a shutout. It never occurred to me. I never went into my brain. But I think Chandler Smith is very, very much the same as Nemechek. Same thing with Corey Heim. When we're looking through this race, like I said, I like the 4 to 5K range. Just due to the fact that I think we are going to have a lot of restarts. And due to that, I think that opens the field up to be playing a lot of drivers, that you might not normally go to, or that don't look as good. I know it's hard to say right now because we don't have the qualifying positions up, but like, for example, when we qualify and say, I'll use 18th for an example. Let's say the car in 18th, I'd project him in a green flag race to finish around 14th or 12th. I think I can bump it up. I think I can project a lot more, not ceiling projections, but a lot more higher floor projections, just due to the fact that I think we're going to have so many restarts. Long run speed doesn't necessarily matter. What's going to matter is what line you start in and what's your short run speed. And so I think that opens the field up to being a really, really big player pool this week for trucks. And that's my takeaway there. It's not that I'm, not touching on everybody else, but I would really kind of project everybody to at least score close to around a 4.8 value. And, once we get the qualifying positions, then we could kind of nail down who in that range is more likely to at least hit those, higher floor projections. But that's where I'm at right here. I'm not really leaning towards any one specific guy. That's mainly my main takeaway is I think the leader is either going to be, Zane Smith or one of the KBM guys or Ben Rhodes. I'm very interested in Ben Rhodes if he is showing speed in practice. As I said, I think a lot of the value plays are going to be viable, and so I think you could very easily have a pretty big, stars and scrubs type of line to where you can play very heavy up top and even punt twice if you need to. I think that's a very viable approach this week for the Truck Series. Continuing on, let's talk about the Xfinity Series real quick. This is one that I'm very excited for. I think this is going to be a really, really fun race. And I think that William Byron has a really good chance of performing well here. I like the pricing that DraftKings did. I like that it's actually pretty balanced. And it's kind of the same thing what was the last race that we did? It was Darlington, I think. Was it Darlington? Yeah, it was Darlington and what was the one before that? Dover. Very same approach to that. My main lap leaders that I'm interested in are the four guys at the top in terms of pricing. It'll be dictated by what I see in practice. But Byron, Gibbs, Gregson, and Allgaier, I'm perfectly good going to them. After that, unless I don't see Tyler Reddick having the speed in practice to outrun the guys who are more expensive than him. I don't see him having the place differential that we saw the last time because, I believe we got rained out at Darlington, and that's what caused him to start in the back. So I don't see him having the place differential. I don't see him having the car to compete for lap leader or the, laps led. I don't see it from AJ Allmendinger. Josh Berry I'm interested in. Jones and Truex, I'm more interested in because they're $94 and $9,200 respectively. I think they're very easy to put in lines, and it's very easy to at least have 3 9K and above guys in your line. I really like Jones. I really, really love Truex. Sam Mayer, we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens. Herbst, too expensive for me. I love Austin Hill. I don't know why Austin Hill is $8,500. Same thing with Landon Castle and Creed. So that's where I really want to drop off to. Because I like Hill, I like Castle, I like Creed. Herbst will be interesting if he shows place differential, but that's where I'm at right now. And so for me, it's Byron, Gibbs, Gregson, Allgaier, Jones, Truex, Hill, Creed, Castle. I want to see what Earnhardt shows. I want to see what Sieg shows. I'm probably not going to Anthony Alfredo, Moffitt, Jeb Burton, or Snyder. Certainly Snyder. He hasn't been showing speed. Brandon Brown, if he qualifies back far enough. But the thing that we've been seeing from Brandon Brown is a real drop-off in terms of speed. Remember that he used to be guaranteed for a top 15 running position. I think this team has actually fallen behind on the field. Very similar to Jeremy Clements, is that these guys are falling through the running order. These guys used to be top 15 cars. I think now they're top 20 cars on a good day. But the running positions are certainly closer to 21st, 20th, 23rd for Brandon Brown, and same thing for Jeremy Clements. Despite the fact Jeremy was wrecked early at Dover, he still didn't have a fast car to begin with. 21st at Darlington isn't screaming to me, and so we can really start writing off the 6K plays. Once we get down to Stephen Parsons in the Tommy John Martin's alpha beta male cuck machine at $5,900. This is the best car we've ever seen from Parsons. We've seen him run some pretty good cars before and do well and wreck. I want to see what he shows. I think Vargas is too expensive. I'd rather go to Curry. Hill depends on what they show in practice. I don't think 55 is going to be able to do it, but we'll see. I don't mind Mason Massey. Mason Massey's been really, really consistent and really sneaky. He has shown up this year, man. And if Massey qualifies outside the top 30 again, I'd almost rather play Massey than Star, but clearly Star, Mills, Williams is going to be fine. I'm probably not going to do Patrick. I don't think they're going to have the speed. CJ McLaughlin, if this car has sponsorship, I think he's a for sure play, and I think he can easily pay it off. Obviously, Mike Harmon and the Brennan Poole machine, just I can't do it. $4,600. Then Jesse Iwuji for $4,500, a One Groove racetrack where he has been consistently off pace this year, and it's not the cars, like it's Iwuji, man. If you guys are really curious, like during the Xfinity Series race, go on Twitter and just search Jesse Iwuji and check out what the team is saying. Check out what he's saying. Like it's bad. Iwuji is so bad, man. It's insane. But yeah, I really like Xfinity this weekend. I went through at least 20 guys that I like for that. I told you how I want to approach the Truck Series race. Thank you guys for listening to this really quick. I know I haven't been putting out as many like early content or early week content as I was, but I've had some stuff going on. I should be back to being more consistent with more videos and content next week and going into the month of June. May's just been kind of busy and weird this month, so that's the main reason why I've been dealing with that. But I'm still making sure I get the live shows up and do those for you guys. And so yeah, just thank you for hanging out. If you like some of the free content that I do, feel free to join the Patreon or donate on PayPal. And if not, hey, I completely understand. Just I'm glad you're here watching the videos and supporting Pearce and I with however you're doing currently. So thank you for that, and we'll see you guys live show tomorrow.